aren't you worried it's going to just feel so dark and closed in and small and foreboding? Well, a gal can only hope so, really, but I am doing all I can. Hello there, and welcome back to The Closet Historian, and welcome to my foyer where I've made a little bit of progress. And I thought it was high time I clued you in on my plans for this space, where I'm at in my renovations for the rest of the downstairs portions of my house. You've seen me put together the sewing parlor, you've seen me put together the adjacent living room, the salon foyer, but now it is finally time to start chipping away at some of the other spaces downstairs. And honestly, this room is not that much smaller than my living room, so really this is going to serve as a second sitting room in my space, even if it is the front entryway as well. I wouldn't want anyone to walk into this space and not be immediately confronted with the sort of vibe they'll be getting. But let's go ahead and go over the plan. Now, while I'm not set decorating a haunted house, I do quite appreciate the set decoration of most haunted homes in film. For instance, the absolutely massive and totally gorgeous decrepit hall from Crimson Peak is one of my main points of inspiration, not just for this foyer, but just for all home decor, really. And this third image in the center here is actually from the program Penny Dreadful, which I guess is still very on theme. And more than any other space I've touched so far in this house, I do really want the foyer to give that very welcome foolish mortals sort of haunted mansion vibe. But when pulling references when working on a space, I do like to try and identify what is consistent between all of these spaces. And in this case, some of the similarities are low lighting, which I have no trouble achieving because there's only one actually hardwired light in this entire room I'm working on, dark woodwork and lots of it, including extra moldings or carved pieces, and a general dim, heavy atmosphere accented perhaps by another texture like a cold, hard stone or perhaps a slightly rough black iron, but punctuated by a splash of silk velvet or aged artworks up along the walls. And I will go ahead and link to the Pinterest board I have for this space in the description below. And here is what the foyer looked like on the day that I signed the paperwork for the house. This is actually the first time I ever walked through the house with it empty. But as you can see, the wallpaper was painted white then, the floors were already their shiny burgundy, and the stairwell and all the trim was painted with this gloopy ivory trim paint. But at least with all of the woodwork already painted several times over like this, I didn't have to feel bad about getting rid of the original finish by adding yet another layer. And of course, one day I would love to have all of this stripped back and refinished, but that is just not in my wheelhouse, either time-wise or money-wise right now, so it will have to wait for the future. And until then, yes, I will simply be painting over all of the ivory with Onyx Black by Benjamin Moore like I've been using in other areas of my house. And I was heartened to leave the last little bits of wood that are already showing on my stairwell in place and pair them with the black paint by this first image on the left here, where you can see a very similar staircase. I figured mine would end up looking like this, and that was just fine with me. This center image here, while a little bit more of a modern take on this vibe than I'm going to be going for, illustrates a similar color palette to that which I have in mind, with a black and white tile floor, black doors, trim, and wainscoting, and then of course a green on the walls and ceiling. And lastly, on the right here, I have an example of what an aesthetic movement period painted ceiling might look like. I'm not sure if this is a replica or an original piece here. It's just an image that was floating around over on Pinterest, but this is similar to what I would like to do for the motif in the ceiling down the line. For now, I just have to get it a solid color other than white. And I didn't really officially start working on this project. It was sort of something I began in the background because I started trying to take weekends and then ended up using them to paint various bits and pieces. So I have actually already begun in here. I painting the millwork, the trim work, and the front door and the closet door on the front wall of my house. These are all already painted in that onyx black and the satin pearl finish from Benjamin Moore. And then again, as I'm apparently adverse to actual recharging and real rest, I did start working on the stairs as well. And then I promptly filled my schedule too tight again, working on Drafting Dangerous to actually finish what I had started. All right, everybody, this is what I currently have going on in the foyer. You walk into the house and this is what you see. So you can see I've made some progress from what it looked like when I moved in. So this was all painted ivory, and everywhere there was ivory, I have now painted, of course, the same onyx black that I've been using in other parts of the house. I've also managed to go ahead and spray paint and or paint the radiator here. Part of it I spray painted. The part that I could remove, I spray painted. The part that is installed into the wall, I just painted with that same onyx trim paint. And I've used that paint on the stair risers and most of the treads. You can see there's a little bit of wood up there. I'll talk about that in a second. But of course, the rest of the floor down here was painted a long time ago in this shiny burgundy. and it's destroyed and sad and holds on to dust somehow better than anything, and I really detest it. Oliver is here to demonstrate why there is a pile of crinkly paper in my foyer, and that's because this is the cat playroom, and they pounce around and like scurry around in this paper and have a grand old time. It is very loud, but they love it, and I'm a cat mom, so what are you gonna do? I did pick up these two sort of wingback armchairs on Facebook Marketplace, and they're perfect for this spot here where there's gonna be this little sitting area or reading nook or a place to put your shoes on here in the foyer. This foyer is big enough to serve as a second sort of little living room area, so that's why these are there. I grabbed these on Facebook Marketplace to replace these other chairs that my mom and I found at an antique mall. These are a bit more mid-century, of course. They're still very pretty, but they're just not exactly perfect for this space, but I needed somewhere to sit in this house when we grabbed these because I did not have the salon finished at that time, so I had virtually only the dining table and the kitchen to sit at, so any armchair was going to be a welcome addition in this place. But I have since upgraded for this room to these buddies over here, which look a little bit more Victorian. They are probably also mid-century. I'm not actually sure when these are from, and the upholstery might be from the 1980s. It looks quite new, but I actually really like this upholstery fabric. It's a woven tapestry fabric in pastel shades, including like a light purple and pink in there. I think that's, you know, what's making, the colors are making me think this might be from the 1980s, but I actually love this fabric. I think it's so pretty and so cute. Oliver, that's too much crinkles. It's too much crinkles, buddy. And because I want to go for a like verdant tapestry effect in this room overall, I'm planning on mixing in several different tapestry prints, and this will just be one of them. And these chairs feature this lighter color of wood, which is what I want to keep consistent in this room, just because I brought this table with me from Colorado, so it was already in this color tone of wood. Kind of matches the, what I assume the rest of the floors once were, color of wood there, and the wood on the banister and the newel posts, if we can call them that. There's one at the top as well, and this one down here. And there apparently never was one here. I'm not sure what happened there. And the table that is currently serving as my bar cart here in the nook under this. Oliver, be quiet. Ollies, do not demonstrate the loud crinkles. Honestly, this little guy. He's gonna play while we talk, apparently. But this is another Victorian table that my mom and I picked up at a antique shop in Boston Spa that I really like for brown furniture. And again, it's that same kind of honey tone of wood. I'm not sure exactly what this is. It's kind of an oak-ish color, I think, but no idea what woods are. I'm not an arborist kind of person, but ignore the alcohol. I promise I'm not a super lush, but I do love a craft cocktail. And this glow lamp slash table, it is all attached. It's sort of a marble table. The marble itself is marked Italy, but I highly doubt that the lamp was made there. The bronze and certain parts of it seem to be a cast white metal, some sort of cheap base metal, and then other parts of this are actually brass. Have no idea when this is from. I don't think it was rewired, so that leads me to think it was a 20th century piece as opposed to something from the actual turn of the century. But I love how Addams Family house it looks, and so it's perfect for in here, especially when I have it turned on, which I don't at this current time. And this mirror here I actually grabbed the same day that I bought this table, I believe. That was the same exact day, out and about at the Colorado Antique Gallery, my favorite antique store in Denver that I miss very dearly. But in general, I have stalled at this point. There is plenty more I can do in here while I am waiting to choose the wallpaper, which I will go over the various options I have in play with you as well. This table will probably stay here. I may swap it out with something else later, or I may move this into like the center of the room and have it be like a true entry table. No exact plan on that. That's so far down the line. I still need to like paint these floors and then replace these floors. In fact, I would like to replace the floors from where I'm standing, which is the entryway, where there's this extra patch of sad 70s tile. We have the burgundy floors underneath this rug. And I would like to replace the floor from the front door all the way back to the back door in my house. Because of course, as you can see, there's hideous, sad 70s laminates back there. I would like to replace this all the way with one tile, probably something in black or white or in marble. I would love to have Victorian encaustic tiles. Sadly, that is just not gonna be in my budget price range. Even doing this in a inexpensive tile will be a stretch for me. So I don't think I'll be able to get like replica encaustic tiles, but that is what I would love to do if money were no object, which of course it is an object. But until then, I will go ahead and paint this burgundy to match the black that I've been painting the other floors in the house, which part of that is already coming up. Wish they had just left me wood floors, but someone in the past decided to paint them, and so now they are just very sad. I do not know exactly what I'm going to do about the little fireplace here, this little guy. When I first moved into the house, I thought I would remove, this is a modern gas fireplace. I thought I would remove this, but then when I first moved into this house, like the third day I had ownership, the furnace went out. And so my baseboard, my lovely baseboard radiators were not coming on. And therefore this had to heat my entire house for like a week in the dead of coldest winter. And therefore I really needed it. And it sort of earned its place to be able to stay. I would love for it to not be kind of fire engine red. So I have to figure out if there's a way to refinish this. I'm sure there's a way to like have it sent out and powder coated, but like that sounds expensive and inconvenient. So I'm wondering if I can just totally tarp off the entire area and use a heat resistant black like grill spray paint to at least recolor this to black, where it will blend in a whole lot more in this room. And above this, I would love to get some kind of like shelf unit situation that looks a little bit like a mantle or like an over mantle piece to put above that. This sconce is the only lighting in this entire room, so I probably should do something about that down the line as well. It's rather a small sconce, doing a lot of heavy lifting in here. There is just stained sad plaster underneath the wallpaper. This is a wallpaper that has been painted white on top of it, so it feels very thick and canvassy. And then we have, of course, the very small scale floral border. We can tell that this floral frieze is just not up to the scale of frieze that I prefer, so I'll have to figure out some crown molding or something to do in here eventually as well. Luckily this room is all like square angles, as opposed to in the sewing parlor, those windows in the front of the house are curved, which makes doing coarse crown molding quite difficult because I would have to have custom curved crown molding. But in this room I could actually get away with having some just regular crown molding, so I'll hopefully be able to add that in later on. There's a lot of sounds going on outside. As usual, they're doing something in the street. They always are. I've brought you up to this bathroom door to show you what I'm dealing with all over the house, which is that I haven't touched this door. This is how it came to me last year when I bought this house. And as you can see, the prep work done before painting this door in the past was a little bit lackluster. So we have this paint, so many layers. They didn't prep well the last time this was painted, or the time before that, or also the time before that. So clearly this was just painted over some cracked, sad paint. It's very gloopy. Over here you can see how gloopy this is over the trim. And this is what it's like in a lot of areas of the house, including in the stairwell where I've been working. So you can see here I have the first coat of black on the stairs on these treads. I actually have 2 coats down there, but I only have the 1 coat on this so far. And you can see, was this a chipped and gloopy stair beforehand? And you can see the burgundy still shining through here. Yes. But at this point, we're not going to be stripping the stairs and redoing them yet because we don't have the time or money to redo all the things. And a lot of things about these stairs are not the most stable ever. I'm honestly not sure this is the original staircase. So one day this requires further investigation. Right now, all that matters is that we eliminate the burgundy from my house, sadly. This is just not the color scheme I'm going with. I don't hate burgundy as like a rule, but because I'm a green girly, it needs to leave. Oliver is here. He's wondering what National Grid are doing out in the street. I am too, buddy. I am too. They haven't ripped up that side in a while, so I guess we'll give it to them. But as you can see, these were chipped, repainted, and sad. And because they were painted over, chipped, repainted, and sad, I'm continuing in that tradition of this home and just going ahead and painting over, chipped, repainted, and sad. However, I only do have that first coat on here, so I need to do another coat. But I try and do these things after, like when I'm right about to go to bed. That way I can lock these beebins in their bedroom. And obviously I don't want them walking up and down on the wet stairs. And they don't really understand painting, sadly. So I try and do this at night. So I'll try and do this next coat on these other steps tonight. It's been several weeks since I put this first coat on. But like I said, I'm very stalled on this foyer project. And the other thing to note here, as being modeled by Oliver so very well, is that once again we have mystery decisions made by past people. Up here in the hall, we do have what I assume are the original wood floors. Hard to say. They're worn and stained and paint speckled in many different ways and shades. But over here, you can see, perhaps, again, this is the world's saddest piece of trim. So that doesn't look original to me. I wouldn't deliver a house looking like that. Here, there seems to be a strip where someone has tried to paint along the sides to make the burgundy look like a rug. They painted along the sides to try and match this wood tone. They like painted it cream and then did like a faux finish on top of that to try and match this wood. I think we can all agree that that maybe was not super successful. So I have this little bit here, all the way along here as well. Why? So like, again, naturally, the correct thing to do here would be to strip this. But instead, what I'm going to do is take the black, and I will continue along this narrow strip here. And this entire board here, I'm going to paint the black. And then here on this board, all along this little threshold at the top of the stairs and along this top banistery bit, I'm going to put a small stenciled pattern along here. I may try and get at least this bit off of here, but I don't really want to strip the floor because I don't want to strip the finish off underneath, and I don't know how to just get the paint off. Anyhow, the rest of it's going to be painted black. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with that. So I'm going to do the stenciling along this board of the floor. I'm going to paint this black to match in with the other top of the step here. I should mention that this is a small little piece, separate piece. A lot of this has been cobbled together. That's why I don't think that this, I'm not certain that this staircase is the original staircase for this house. I don't know what would have happened to the original, but you know. This does look a little bit more on the craftsman side of things, this newel post. But again, maybe it's 1890, who knows? This house is from 1890, so no way of really knowing if this is original. I'll tell you what isn't original. This peeling, slightly metallic, slightly glittery, I assume 1960s or 70s wallpaper, which is really giving up since I've moved in. But this is, I don't know, 20 feet in the air, so there's no way for me to get that down, that's for sure. This is also a sad ceiling fan in here. You got your smoke alarm, and then the wallpaper on this side, which is like a faux grass cloth, which again is giving up on us. It's not attractive, but again, too tall for me to get it off. So has to wait for, I guess, professional painters or wallpapers people to fix this hallway eventually. But we're doing what we can in the meantime, that's right. Which really should involve getting rid of this stupid trim piece that looks awful. But I guess I don't know what I would patch it in with. But I don't think this was the solution, pals. Yikes. Now, the last thing I'm going to do to kind of finish off the stairwell is I'm going to try and maybe stencil the leaves along the top of the banister as well. Again, everything either needs to be refinished or redone. So eventually down the line, when I can afford to do that, I'd love to do that. Until then, I'm making it work. So I'm thinking about stenciling along the top here in the black to, again, tie everything together. You can see I left a little bit of the wood along the edge of these steps here because that was the only space on the treads that still had the natural wood. So I left that little edge along there. And obviously I left the banister and the newel posts because they were still in wood and not painted something various and strange like so much else in this house. So I think I'm going to do the leaves on the top here, and I might do some sort of like medallion on the top of the newels because both of them are just this kind of smooth cap. So I could do some sort of design here, maybe even do the bee. So we'll have to see. Now we have the stairwell windows, which are, you know, the thing that sold me this house. When I first saw these windows, I said, where do I sign? So I love these windows. I obviously have started painting a little bit the onyx black here because the rest of the trim in this house so far has been painted onyx black by Benjamin Moore. I'm going to continue that. So I need to paint the interior window trim, which obviously takes ages. I could tape off each window and then it would be faster to paint, but taping off each window would take a long time. So either way, it's going to take a long time. I think I'm just going to paint carefully with a small brush. But outside I can paint these like with a slightly larger brush, hopefully get that done. And then I have purchased some colorful films to go ahead and try and stain glassify these even further. They're already very pretty as is with the clear glass. And this is the original glass and the original windows in these from 1890. But I think they could be quite fun with the colorful glass as well. At least I'm going to try it with the colorful film. And if I don't like it, I can always take it off. So there's that. Down here, I do have this pier mirror. This is like an East Lake style pier mirror that's supposed to be like across from windows in a hall. It's probably better like supposed to be here. But there's of course a radiator below here, so I can't put anything against the wall there. classic for this house. I do need to kind of mount this onto this wall. I do also want to try it over here on this side. So I might like switch the table and the mirror and see where I prefer it. This way I kind of see the windows reflected when I walk down the stairs, but it might be nice to have the windows reflected when I'm downstairs, or it might look silly. So I'm gonna flip these and see which I like more, and we'll see. And also another elephant in the room here is that this wall is dark now, and that's because I was painting the ceiling above here, and I thought I might as well just paint the wall too. This is currently, it was wallpaper, this wallpaper here, but someone had painted over it white like they did with the rest of the room. And so I figured if they could paint over wallpaper, I could too. So I painted over the wallpaper. Again, it's something that will come down and be fixed later on, but I can't afford to do it right now. But I would like to live in the house that feels a little bit more me in the meantime. So I have painted it the same shade of green as I've painted the ceilings downstairs. And the plan here on the landing, where again, we still have what I assume all of the floors were like once, but then somebody got a wild idea. And again, to tie this in, I think I will once again do a border of those leaves all the way around with the black. I might actually extend this black out and do like a wide black border around the edge and then do the floral next to it, just to make everything look a little bit more intentional. You can kind of see that this is green now. There's light doing strange things, but this is like a, I guess, dark mossy sage green. Not exactly sure what to call this color. It doesn't have a name. But here's the window film in the green shade. I have 3 more colors of this film coming, so I have not started yet because I have to decide exactly what I wanted to do. I should probably mock up what colors I want to do in Photoshop first to get an idea of what I want each window to look like, but that's for later. Other tasks for today while listening to National Grid tear the street up outside. As you can see, I have painted the ceiling in here. This is 2 coats of this same green shade, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I have to take this curtain down, and I need to, like I've painted this window frame, paint this one with the onyx black as well to match in with my front door and the closet door and this other window. I need to paint this one as well. So I'm going to do that. The other thing is too, again, down here we have the same wallpaper that's in there that has been painted white over the years, 1 or 2 coats on there, plus this horrible little border here. I do think, again, I'm either going to bring this color down or bring another color onto these walls so that while I save up for wallpaper and having the wallpapering done, I don't have to look at this anymore because it's just not the vibe. And yes, despite the fact that it's still early to mid-September, I do have pumpkins out already, and these lanterns caught my eye at Michael's. I saw them online and I was like, I don't need those, right? And then I saw them in store and they were 60% off or something ridiculous. So I had to have the little gothic lanterns because I'm weak. That's right. These 2 are big faux pumpkins. They're nice and like fairy tale pumpkin style. Those were from Home Goods. This is another 60% off Michael's pumpkin. This is another 60% off Michael's pumpkin. You go in for paintbrushes and you get distracted. You know what I mean? Here's another evidence of weird painting things done in the past, by the way. While I was painting this trim and trying to get a little bit of foyer painting done the first round, you can see that there's like this black paint on the newel post. That wasn't me. I don't know if there was maybe carpet on these stairs once and someone, I don't know, guys. Now, naturally, when it came to start looking at wallpapers for the foyer, I first looked at Lily from Bradbury and Bradbury because this is the paper, for those of you who don't know, that is in the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland, the original Haunted Mansion. And it's a delicious Victorian reproduction paper. Wouldn't mind having this at all. They did used to have this where the gold was in metallic gold, and now they no longer use a metallic on this paper for some reason. This does come in, I think, 2 other colorways, but the other colorway is, like the other green colorway is a little too pink, and this one is a little too orange, I think, for my taste. So I just don't think this is the exact right design for me. Bradbury is also extremely expensive, so I would have to love it to invest in this like technically very period correct choice for this room. Another very expensive choice that I wouldn't mind using is, I think this is Richmond by Zoffany. This paper, it's delicious because, I mean, obviously this is a, you can see that this is like paint on here. This is not a printed, this is a roller printed or block printed, something like that. Looks like roller printed to me, design on a metallic gold base. So all of this is printed on top of metallic gold, so it does have a slight sheen to it. This is an absolutely gorgeous paper from Zoffany. But again, this is priced out of my price range. Very, very pretty paper. Love it. Speaking of other things that are expensive, but just on the edge of maybe willing to save up for, is this little green paper. Now, I really like this little green paper. I'm a huge fan. There is a sort of yellow and orange bird here. It does have a little bit of those warm tones, but it is mostly in the cooler, warm tealy greens, and then of course warm olive tones that I have going on in the rest of my house. So I thought this would work very well in here. This was my original kind of choice that I had settled on for doing in here. And of course the dark gray kind of charcoaly bits of this match well with my onyx trim. So this is definitely an option that I really like for in here. But then I wanted to look at papers that were more reminiscent of sort of 17th, 18th century tapestry, which of course we'll get to these two in a moment. But I started looking at these papers here. These were all from Wallpaper Direct. I'm not exactly, I can't remember where the companies are, but I can link these below. This is the same paper in two different colorways. I would have gone with this one because the other paper, this paper has, the background is actually, this is navy, not black, whereas this one has the black in the background and kind of a navy color, and so therefore it would pair with my black trim better. Although I do like the other colors in this more, so I kind of want like a fusion of these two. This I think would have been beautiful in here. Again, on the more expensive side for a paper, and very pretty. I wish this was a slightly larger scale, but still not a bad choice. I think any of these papers would be nice in here. This is another paper. This is from I think they are a Scandinavian company, Rebel Walls. Now the problem with this is it's I think print on demand. And the scale, they kind of adjust for your walls, I think, but I would rather it just be large scale. Again, a very expensive paper. It's not block printed like, say, the Zoffany or the little green papers are. So there's really no, like, there's not as good of an excuse for it to be that expensive. If it was block printed like, say, these papers are, well, not this one, these two, then I feel like they would have more of a reason for charging quite as much as they do. It is custom printed, so I understand, but I love this paper. I love this print. I will link it below. It is gorgeous. If money is no object, then do it. And this is another paper that looks rather like a tapestry cartoon. I really like this. This comes in several colors. I don't remember what this is from Cordon. The collection is Victorian, and this is Verdure 16th century. So this is supposed to look like a landscape tapestry, which is why I like it. Again, great. The colors are a little subdued for me, honestly. A little less saturated, I guess, than say like these guys up here. This one again is more subdued. So I like it, fine, again. But then I discovered this other company. I've looked at a lot of wallpaper samples for this room. Here's that same tapestry one in a different colorway. And then in another colorway it comes in. I do like both of these colorways as well. I've looked at some William Morris papers, which are extremely expensive because again, they are kind of block printed. This paper is block printed. It's super pretty. I love wallpaper, but I came across another company. Oh, these are a French wallpaper company, and these papers are absolutely divine. And again, extremely expensive out of my price range. And here's the other Bradbury and Bradbury. Again, just a little too pinky burgundy for what I'm trying to eliminate that kind of tone in there. So if it was still with the gold, I may feel differently, but it's no longer with the gold, sadly. I found this company, which of course is by appointment to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So they are a British company. Warner House since 1870. They make very fun wallpapers. These are printed, not block printed, but they are like digitally printed, I assume, papers. But they do have some very nice designs, including this very nice Verdure tapestry. Do I wish this was 25% larger in scale? Yes. These papers are not quite as wildly expensive as some of the other choices you've seen. I think these are 190 pounds a roll. I'm not sure. You do have to check when looking at wallpaper too, if it's a single width or a double width roll, because sometimes the rolls of paper are only like, down to like 12 inches wide, and sometimes they're 22 inches or more. So you have to see exactly how expensive something is depending on how wide it is as well. And I eventually, when I have this room wallpapered, and of course the stairwell above us, because I can't get up here as previously established, because I'm going to be using a more expensive paper, I will be having it professionally installed in this room and above us. So I will wait until I can do that to have them professionally measure how much paper I will need. Anyhow, it's all going to be a very large expense, which is why I'm doing things in the meantime here. But this paper is you know, option 1 right now. And then option 2 is this buddy, which again is a much larger scale. If we look at the size of the leaves and the size of the leaves, the scale of this is much more mural-like. And I had this paper and this paper. This one was over here as well. And I've had these all kind of pinned up. And like every day when I get back from my walk or get back from going to the grocery store or whatever, I see them in here at different times of day with different lighting going on. And I can kind of get an idea of what it might look like when there's wainscoting below here and then the paper above. And then of course up here, it will all be paper eventually one day. Hopefully, you know, fingers crossed. And so I'm trying to get an idea of what I want and what I like. I really like this paper, but I think this just makes me feel like I'm in a fall leaf pile on like a gloomy day. This is a little bit more manor housey. I like it a lot, don't get me wrong. But right now I'm leaning towards this one. These two are kind of my top choices right now, honestly. This paper does come in many colors. This is the slightly more saturated kind of fall toned version. This one has this delicious peacock teal in here as well. This is a little bit, again though, more saturated, a little bit more, not cartoony, but just more saturated. And this is the kind of like charcoal black. Again, this matches the onyx of the trim in here quite well. And then there's only a little bit of this like burnt orangey rust in this. And then of course we have these very green toned mustardy fall leaves in here as well. And then the dark green. A little bit of blue in here as well. So this is a really fun color palette that I really like. Not that I don't like this color palette because that's also delicious. And again, this comes in other colors that I quite like as well. But I think this is just going to be too loud in here once it's everywhere. And I think I want the more subdued, gloomier take. So I'm looking at this paper currently. These two, again, are my favorites. You can let me know. Do you like tapestry or forest floor? Let me know. Because they are the same company, these are the same price. So there's no price difference there. But I'm currently leaning towards this one because I just kind of want it to feel like fall all the time. And I do worry that maybe this is a little too grand. And technically, you know, 16th, 17th, 18th centuries are all wrong, the wrong periods for this house. And this paper doesn't have a time period. If anything, it looks kind of 50s or 40s or 50s to me. But if you're wondering what that crackling paper sound is, this is just paper paradise for the kittens right now. And so he's just crunching on a home goods bag because there's just nothing better when you're a cat, honestly. So what I did this week is I took this paper sample and I had them color match this green color. You can see it's not exactly a perfect match, but whatever, close enough. I had them color match the kind of lightest green in this, and so that is the green color. We're gonna have to name this green color because it does not have a name. So come up with a name for the green tone. And I think this tone of green is not too dissimilar from like this tone of green, so I think it would work either way. But what I did was I painted the ceiling here in the foyer that color matched green. And you can see, we got screw pops, we got bits taken out, we got this little nonsense going on here. The house ain't perfect, which is why I feel like I'm only improving it even with just paint. So I've color matched this green tone. I've painted that wall below the windows, and I have painted the ceiling in the foyer, focus, that green color. I actually quite like this color. It's sort of like a dark, moody sage, which I don't love a sage green, but I think this has too much yellow in it to be sage green proper. You let me know. But it matches the leaf here. And because I had a whole gallon of this, and yes, that is the floor in my kitchen. I mean, we still have the burgundy paint stained, dusty sad floor out here, but the floor in there is even worse, if you can believe it. Ooh, yikes. Anyway, this wall is also painted that same shade of green here. This is, of course, outside the living room here. This is my dining room in there, and I will be showing you that soon. This was the lovely apple wallpaper, and I will say this is not a real beam. This is a fake beam. Fun point fact. But I decided if these people could paint over wallpaper, the people of the past, I can too, because it's going to be a long time before I can afford to have the kitchen and dining area and the actual back porch all ripped out and redone. It's going to be an extremely expensive renovation to do all of that. But in the meantime, for the next few years, like several years, I don't want to live with apple wallpaper. So I've just gone ahead and painted over all of this in the green tone, and actually that entire room is now painted in this green tone, and I'll talk about that in its own video. I'd rather look at green, you know, that's just me, that's just me. And that's right, eventually I did stop yapping to all of you about my plans and actually started putting some of them into place. I took the sad temporary curtain that had been here since I bought the house up off of this window, the last window in this foyer that I hadn't begun painting, and I gave the trim 2 coats of the onyx black. And this last window downstairs was of course much easier to paint than the last 3 halfway up the stairs. And I did want to touch on physical exhaustion and perhaps mental exhaustion as well, because even these initial steps for this room have been taking me a lot longer than I had hoped. Part of that is due to distraction because I was working on other videos here on the channel, projects for here and on Patreon as well, and also I have begun working on the dining room and kitchen as I mentioned as well, just because I got too distracted and I was in a painting flow state and kind of went overboard. But it meant I didn't get as much done on the foyer for this video as I wanted to. And I do try and of course press myself to make as much progress as possible because it's far more impressive on camera. But that sometimes is just not how the real world works. Sometimes you wake up and you're exhausted or you're sick or something happens that you have to work on immediately or things shift and schedules have to move around. And it always just really frustrates me, honestly. And naturally, I wish instead things could go according to how I have originally scheduled them. And in a related story, something I often forget about myself, which does seem very strange to say, is that I have PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is a very strange name for what this is. And it basically means that my hormones are just slightly out of whack, enough to drive me a little bit bonkers occasionally, and that is the part that I have been medicated for. I have mentioned before that I'm on a low dose SSRI to help with the kind of emotional or like psychological effects of PMDD, but something I often forget is that that's not the only effect. And since my psychological symptoms are so well managed now that I have been on medication for the last several years, I forget that there are other symptoms of this disorder, including fatigue, and that I perhaps shouldn't beat myself up all the time about being like so tired, like physically exhausted, and sometimes too tired to get all the work done that I want to, especially when it comes to physical work like painting or renovating. And I do need to recognize that I have limits, and whether that's due to PMDD or due to just being in my mid-30s now and not as spry as I used to be, I have to give myself a little bit more grace than I'm used to. And luckily I'm slightly more practiced at that, but still not enough. So part of me wants to apologize for not making a ton of progress in this video. But at the same time, I've done all I can in the time that the calendar gave me, and as usual I wish there were more hours in a day and days in a week, but that's another thing I just can't change. But I guess I just wanted to take a moment and remind you, and mostly myself, that we're all just doing our best for the most part, and baby steps in the right direction are still tiny steps in the correct direction nonetheless. Well, it's a dark and rainy, very fall-like day here in upstate New York, and I'm honestly loving it. But it does make it hard for me to actually show you that I did actually paint a second coat on these spindles, I promise. Have I gotten to the stuff I need to do on the floor yet, including stenciling our fun design, or on top of the banister? No, I have not gotten there yet. Have I painted a second coat on these stair treads? No. It almost looks like I have because it's so nice and dark in here, but I have not. Have I removed the most offensive piece of trim that has ever existed? Sadly, no. But I have done something that took me quite a long time. And that was, I have painted the windows. That's right. They have finally become their most gothic version of themselves. Well, nearly. And we're really getting there. So I painted the outside of the trim. I've painted the inside of the windows. I left myself a tiny strip of ivory on the inside there because I didn't want to get paint on the ropes that are supposedly for the weights to lift and... These windows are not operational. They were painted shut by the last coat of paint. That wasn't me. That came before me. Honestly, there are no screens on these windows. My cats could easily jump in and out of them. Bugs could come in. I'm not going to open these anyway. When I have saved up to have the exterior and all of the windows refurbished for this house, they will be refurbished. They will be done in their original wood or matched to what they would have been originally. But until then, because that amount of money is not, it doesn't seem to be flowing in anytime soon, I will live with them painted black and painted shut. And yes, can you tell that like so many others, I have been trained by the internet to just foresee people coming for you in the comments. So you can, I don't really mind. I understand. You know, I would love to restore everything to the way it was when it was built in 1890, even though I hardly know what that looked like in here. but alas, the dollar isn't there. You know, that would be the problem there. But as we can see, I have started also working on the film. I have the Windex is out, the little tools are out to start putting the colorful stained glass film onto these windows. Again, this is something that is removable, and in the future when I have these windows restored, I highly doubt I will keep the colorful plastic film on them, but I would like to perhaps have actual pieces of colored glass put in these windows when they are restored, or even just keep these windows, have them restored, store these original windows in the basement and have replacements done in stained glass and put in here that could be taken out and replaced with the originals if need be, and have those kind of switched out for actual stained glass. Again, if I'm going to dream big, if we're going to dream, you know, that I have the money to do all this one day, that's what I would love to do. But for now, we're going with this. This is a faux stained glass effect colored clear film. It is transparent, or mostly. It has a little bit of a wavy effect to it, especially when you're walking by or like moving by, which I would show you more, but then I don't want you to see the view out of my house, so and they don't have a ton of colors of this, but this is from Decorative Films, and I will link this below. This is unfortunately an adhesive film. I prefer a static cling film, and it would be much easier for me to use, but again, it is still technically removable, it's just not reusable. And I will have to figure out a way to do the other more shapely windows in this film. I do have a plan. Here's the color plan as of right now. And in fact, if you clever people out there want to take this image, which I will link to you below on Photoshop, and come up with other arrangements of these 4 colors for these windows, have at it, because I played around in Photoshop first to come up with this scheme, but I'm not totally 100% sold on it. So if you want to come up with something else, show me. Here we are. We can kind of see what I mean by the wavy glass. Which most of the glass in my house is wavy glass, but maybe these windows don't have original glass either, because the glass over here doesn't seem to be the wavy glass that I have everywhere else. So honestly, maybe these have been replaced once before, and therefore I shouldn't have to feel bad about potentially replacing them with stained glass in the future. But I do want to go ahead and fill in the rest of this. These are not dirty on the inside. Unfortunately, they are dirty on the outside, so I will have to have that remedied sometime as well. And it may look like they're painted very messily on the inside. They're actually not too bad. It's the like window not flashing, what is it called? I'll put the word here, this stuff on the outside of the windows, which is old, crusty, and not doing well, and that actually doesn't have any of that sealant on the inside, so I probably should do something about that before winter. Who knows? But in general, I still have a very long way to go, and this is taking a lot longer than I had thought, and that is because I've actually started, well, first of all, it's because I've been working on Draft and Dangerous, but second of all, it's because I've actually started working on the dining room and the kitchen as well, because it was just too dated to live with it like that anymore. And when a girl has paint, you know, it's like an itch that needs to be scratched. So I will show you what I have been doing over here soon enough as well, but before then I do have to make some more progress here in the foyer, because I would like this foyer to be properly foreboding before Halloween, when I'm opening the door and handing out candy. I do need to ask my neighbors how popular of a trick-or-treating street this is. And seeing as there's like Victorian graveyards all around here, honestly it seems like it would be the best place to go trick-or-treating, but what do I know? I did also finish 2 coats of paint on the trim of this last window in here as well. This one goes out to the front of the house, this one goes to the side of my house, and you can see outside I have a porch that again needs to be probably entirely rebuilt one day, but for now it's still standing, so it's fine. I do still have to do something about the walls in here, and now that I've learned that you can paint over wallpaper, I mean, they did it, and I don't know why I was so afraid to do it. It's a temporary fix until I can afford to have the real stuff done, but it still looks better than this. So maybe next time I update you on this room, I'll have more to show for myself when it comes to the walls. And so this is what I've been able to accomplish so far. It's not a lot of progress, but it's more than nothing. And honestly, those windows, I was really dreading having to paint around all the little tiny details. So I'm really glad that I was able to get that hurdle at least accomplished. I know I'm definitely excited to see what the windows look like with more of that colored film in place, although I'm not exactly looking forward to how fiddly it's going to be quilting that plastic up there. Thank you for watching today, and a huge thank you to my patrons who of course make my work and these videos possible. And as always, I'll be back with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, crafting, and decorating real soon, so I'll see you then. Bye!